All right, hello everyone, and welcome to Session 6, Season 2 of Star Trek Bastet. Just a few things to go over before we get started. Mainly that if this is your first time joining us, hello and welcome. I also have hand tracking technology tonight, which has started to work, so enjoy that. But anyway, more to the point. So, we are a time traveling Prometheus class that is bouncing back and forth between the future, present, in general, all the time shenanigans you could think of. And in general, what that means is that this crew has been through the ringer. If you missed last week's episode, let's just say the doctor had a breakdown of sorts, ended up being court-martialed and drummed out of Starfleet. So let's just say that the Lower Decks episode we're going to be doing tonight, the crew has mostly earned it by now. But what I would say is that you don't worry if you can't stick around for the full session, or if you want to play catch up. The VODs are on YouTube and most of the popular podcast solutions. Announcements. Oh yes. So tomorrow at 8 p.m. I am going to be doing a Fallout 2D20 one shot, which I think should be lots and lots of fun. The only downside is it's going to be my first exposure to the system, so it might be a little bit weird, but I think I've got a good grasp on it. Yeah, that's at 8 p.m. Eastern. Should be a good time. I mean, Matthew will be there. For those of you that have watched Cyberpunk Red, Professor X will be there. And for anyone who's a fan of Benosphere will be there. And that should be a really good time. And I think that's it for announcements. So let's go to introductions, starting with the captain.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex. I am playing Commander Abasi, the ship's Cation captain.
Hello everyone, my name is Nikhil and I play Lieutenant Alexio.
Hello everybody, I'm Brian. I play Lieutenant Baylor Droxine, and Ardanen First Officer and Helmsman.
Good evening everyone, I am Dare Wolf and I will be playing the EMH.
Hello everyone, my name is Matthew, and I play Lieutenant Tyr Thavarin, the Benzite Tactical Officer.
And ignoring the Hollow Kitty that has just appeared, I'm ELH, the Game Master. And I believe today, Alexio, you have our opening log.
I do. Lieutenant Alexio's log, stardate 94001.8. Today marks 100 days since the Bastet was caught in the temporal anomaly. I don't know whether to call our continuing mission a success or a failure. We may not be back to normal, but we're still flying, which, to be honest, I would not have predicted. So much has changed in 100 days. Despite our differences, we have come together as a crew, so much so that the betrayals of Verissa and Gator stung that much more. But there are good things as well. Commander Abasi has truly grown into his role as captain, despite having to deal with such a difficult group. Lieutenant Commander Droxine seems to have embraced his duties on this ship rather than pining for another one. And shockingly enough, Thavarin has shown a great deal of humility lately. Who would have thought that I would have come to regard that man with such admiration? And as for me, I've somehow found myself embracing my duties as a Starfleet officer. And of course, I met Riller and possibly lost her as well. Captain Riller departed Deep Space October without notice or a goodbye, but the ripples of her actions still affect us. Our Raylor remains unresponsive to any attempts at conversation. V and Mir have been checking in on her, and I visit her bedside daily to read to her. I had heard that meeting yourself could be a traumatic experience, and in addition to the psychic trauma from the loss of her eyesight, I fear she may have just gone through too much. I just don't know what to do but be here for her. Perhaps the new emergency medical hologram might be able to help her. The captain is scheduled to bring him online today. Aside from all that, it's fairly quiet here on the Bastet. I mean, We're on patrol near DSO until the next temporal crisis. The ship is now fully stocked and has had regular maintenance performed, and we're even expecting some new crew to help relieve our workload. The fleet admiral was somehow able to find an Iconian interested in serving in Starfleet. I suppose there aren't many species that would be able to be assigned as Bastet crew, so we're lucky we were able to nab one of the weirdos when we could. I've planned a little event in the holodeck later today to celebrate 100 days and welcome on board the new crew. I think it will be good for all of us to get a little break from everything. Here's hoping that the next 100 days are just a little less dramatic. End log.
Very nice. And you may have one momentum for that opening log. So, by request, as I said at the top of the session, today will be lower decks, which means we have a few scenes planned out, but after a certain point, it's pretty much all up to the players. But our very first scene is going to take place in Bastet's sickbay. And Alexio, you're walking in to basically see Relure. For the moment, she is in "quote unquote" counseling for with V, but let's just say it's less counseling and more V trying to get through to her. But you've been invited all the same, so feel free to take it from there.
Yeah, I walk in. I have a big, quite a hefty dome under my arm, and I see V there, and I just nod. Lieutenant V, any progress today?
I guess it depends on what you would call progress. I mean, let me put it in a frank manner. So initially, as you well know, she's catatonic, doesn't really respond to most attempts at conversation. To borrow a medical term, a deaf mute. And I, of course, have tried everything in the Federation books of tricks to get her talking or even acknowledging conversation. But as you can see, she's not really responsive still. And indeed, if you were to look over at Relure, what you would see is that she's just sort of sitting straight up, staring straight ahead, blinking, of course, but otherwise not making. Oh, what are my hands doing? What are my hands doing? Okay, we're gonna disable hands until they stop freaking out. Basically, Relore is catatonic in a sense, and even as you walk in, there is no recognition on her face. There's just nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I look over at V. Those seem to be very carefully chosen words of yours right there. You said nothing in the Federation playbook worked. Does that mean you have some other ideas about something that could help?
Let me put it to you this way. I, again, have approximate knowledge of all things, which I know I say often, but in this case, I do mean it. Let's just say that there are some interesting techniques I could apply to Allure. The problem is that most of them are a little less than legal in the Federation, if you get my meaning.
And why would those be illegal? Are they dangerous?
I would say about half are dangerous. The other half are, let's just say they use a substance which would cause the entire ship to go to Omega Alert.
Yes. Well, those also sound pretty dangerous. But it's funny, if you'd asked me a few weeks ago, I would have been on board with anything. But is there anything you could think of that maybe we could make the case to get a special dispensation to try?
Well, there is one thing I remember reading in the Denobulan Medical Review. Apparently, they had gotten the idea, and I know this is going to sound weird, but bear with me. Apparently, and she does finger quotes or air quotes, the hack-led medical review put forth an idea that one could restart a brain. And of course, the first instinct was everybody was just going to throw that out. But then a crazy Klingon decided, you know what? Let's see if the Packlids actually are onto something here. Madman literally turned off his brain, was brain dead for about 20 minutes, and then came back as if nothing was wrong. But what I would say is that not only did that procedure go without a hitch with no long-term effects, supposedly it also fixed some of the mental problems he had. For example, he used to stutter like no one's business. Now, as far as I know, he's not stuttering anymore.
Unfortunately, I lack the medical expertise to think this over, but would you be maybe willing to pitch this to the captain and the new doctor once they come online? I mean, I could sit here and read her from Cardassian literature all day, but even meditations on the Crimson Shadow has an end to it. I just don't know what to do, and I just want her to be happy.
And I think V actually makes a conceited effort, not a conceited, what's the word? It's a C word, whatever. V gets up, and in a very meaningful way, she actually kind of puts a reassuring hand on your shoulder and says, look, I know coming from me it's not going to be much, but you're doing all you can. It's all anyone asks.
You've really taken this ship's counselor role to heart, haven't you?
Well, considering the alternative is going back to the continuum and possibly getting quote-unquote court-martialed myself with the death penalty on the table, I don't know if you know what it takes to kill a Q, but yeah, I don't wanna, no.
So you're really okay with going from omnipotence to hanging out with a bunch of weirdos like us?
I mean, that's half the fun. I mean, I basically just push a few buttons on the bridge sometimes, and I get to have these lovely conversations with the crew. I honestly couldn't predict what any of you would do next, which I find more fun than knowing everything. I mean, where's the mystery? Where's the, again, fun in knowing exactly what's going to happen when? There isn't any.
I guess you're right. Huh. Weird as it may sound, that did actually help a lot. It's been a little stressful not knowing what's going to happen next, but I suppose for it's not much better just knowing.
And I think V gives you like a knowing wink and goes back to sit behind her desk and says, well, you can take her back to her bed or you can read to her here, but technically I have her for the next 15 minutes, so entirely up to you.
Yeah, I'll just find a seat right there, open up the book, just be like, yes, and I believe where we last left off, the brave Cardassians had just struck yet another victory against the Klingon barbarians. I know that could be describing any point in this book, but and I'll just start reading from there.
Gotcha. So the camera actually does not leave sickbay. It actually just leaves the counselor's office, as coming into sickbay is a quartet of individuals. We have the glorious Tamarochka, we have the venerated Tavarin, we have the esteemed Droxine, and of course, last but not least, the captain himself. And the four of you are pretty much just coming here to activate the EMH, or at least is my understanding, so go for it.
Now, Captain, you do understand that although the engineering team at Deep Space October has repaired most of the hollow emitters on the ship and attempted to recompile the EMH's program, we're still uncertain as to the exact nature of its, I don't know, orientation, its personality. There have been innumerable different technologies and temporal anomalies that have affected the ship. Anything could result.
Yes, I'm well aware. I I was taking a look at some of what DSO gave us on the schematics. I'm not sure why some of the programming's been rerouted in the way that it has, but the only way we're going to figure this out is to activate the system, and we need to.
Undoubtedly, we can't continue functioning without a doctor, but may I suggest that we impose some kind of limitation on the operation of the EMH, perhaps some kind of testing parameter before we bring it into full operation? We don't know what the artificial intelligence Athena on board Deep Space October might have done. Maybe that would account for some of the odd programming language that we're seeing here.
What are your thoughts on these limitations?
Well, we could initially deny it access to its control over its hollow matrices, its containment fields, and the like. In other words, keep it functionally intangible initially while we run initial diagnostics of its personality subroutines while it's in operation.
And I think Tamarochka cuts in very quickly and says, I'm not exactly biggest fan of hologram, don't get me wrong, but I'm pretty sure that violates very many Starfleet regulations about sentience of hologram. They have rights. Even EMHs have rights.
It's your decision in the end, Captain.
We can have the computer grant the EMH reduced access to systems. That should functionally do what that would do for a non-photonic life form, which is that he'll be able to control his own function, but be unable to access the systems of the ship until we grant him that permission.
And Tamarochka just sort of points at you and nods.
That sounds like a better course of action, in my opinion. We could, for the time being, also limit his access to sickbay facilities until we have a better understanding of what he's capable of as well.
I would recommend against that. There's every possibility that we'll need him to have access to all of sickbay's various systems, and if we limit the EMH's ability and suddenly we need him to use a piece of technology, there's no telling who will be available to relieve that limitation.
A valid point, Commander, although I would say that unfettered access to all the systems in sickbay did allow our previous doctor to murder someone.
Yes, but on the other hand, I can actually have the computer give me reports on what the EMH is doing, whereas it couldn't tell me what Cater was doing all the time.
I'm gonna jump in here as the voice in the sky. Allegedly murdered someone.
Was that the EMH talking to us right now? I don't.
No, I think it is just nerves. I mean, literally, we probably are going to be seeing Cater's ghost walking around sickbay sometimes. It's psychosomatic nonsense. Listen, I've probably been listening too much to V, but shall I push buttons? Shall I activate the MH?
Be my guest, Captain. Obviously I don't have authority to do that. My apologies.
Everybody turns to look at Captain.
Lieutenant, bring it online.
Pushing the button now, sir. And as a hologram shimmers into existence, Mr. Wolf, if you could describe yourself as you appear before everyone else.
Looks just like me. Exactly like me. Beard, glasses, the whole kit and caboodle. Please state the nature of the medical emergency. Whoa. Well, this is strange. This isn't... Was I on a Prometheus class? Why are there only 11 people on... Captain?
Doctor, welcome to the Bastet.
Thank you. Why do I want to call you Captain Kitty?
So Cater was rewriting the EMH. All right.
Apparently so. We should run a diagnostic, if you don't mind, Doctor, given that you are, as our captain has reminded us, a sapient independent being. Can we run a diagnostic of your primary subroutines?
Treat me like a patient. Yes, please. My brain feels a little fuzzy. Programming. Matrix? I continue.
All right.
Okay.
Well, whoever is going to be doing the actual diagnostic here, if you could roll me a control and an engineering difficulty of 1. And while they're doing that, Wolf, if you could bump your gain up by like 1 or 2 decibels or dB, and I think you'll be at a good
How
level.
about that?
All right, that looks a little bit better. Yeah.
All right, cool. I got you.
Augmented ability control, and I'll
Would
roll
apply.
2 dice.
All right, well, that's going to give you 2 successes, which gives you a momentum back. And yeah, actually don't have any bad news, which is weird. Yeah, it's all good news. I mean, you're not really seeing that Cater's influence has extended to the EMH. What you're seeing is that it's more that the EMH has just very quickly read through all of the logs that have been done up to this point. Because again, it's a computer; it works faster than light because that's how Star Trek computers work. So let's just say that the urge to call the Captain Kitty was probably just because he read through Cater's log in a nanosecond kind of a thing. But yeah, I mean, EMH looks fine, operating as it should. No signs of degeneration. You know what I mean. No signs of any issues whatsoever. Well, there is one thing that's weird. It's not bad. It's just weird. Apparently, he likes opera. You just see an opera subroutine for some reason.
As near as I can tell, Captain, there's nothing wrong with his programming. He's operating within normal parameters. He is immensely efficient, incredibly so. He's already assimilated most of the information in the ship's logs, which is actually somewhat concerning that he would have access to them and would do so immediately. And he likes opera. Not even Klingon opera, so I have no idea why, but okay.
Klingon's all right. I prefer Earth opera, Pavarotti being my favorite. But with that being said, Captain, why did you allow the last Doctor to murder someone?
That's a good question.
Well, he gets straight to the point. I like him already.
That is true. It wasn't so much that it was allowed to happen as Lieutenant Cater acted on his own volition without getting authorization for his actions.
As acting chief medical officer, I would recommend to you, Captain, that we run a full psychological analysis on everyone on the crew. I can begin right now, if you'd allow me.
We already have a counselor on board. I think we can hold off on that course of action for now.
If you call and execute a counselor, sure, but I'm better at it.
Oh, I like him.
Oh, that's a bad sign.
I mean, I think I like I said, I'm liking the cut of this man's jib.
Thank you.
I'll take it under consideration.
Of course, Captain. Is there anything else?
Should we tell him that we're not going to turn him off?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, we're going to leave you on.
Do I have a choice in this?
I mean, yeah, you could in theory turn yourself off.
Brilliant. Computer, deactivate EMH.
And the EMH shimmers out of existence.
Well, that was interesting.
I mean, I think already step up from Cater if you have to ask me, but hey, what do I know? I just have to keep the hologram running.
Efficient, brusque. Very nice. So much better. Not nearly so much of a motor mouth.
I just love
all
that
right,
Wolf.
well.
I just love that Wolf is having to bite his tongue as we trash talk.
He turned himself off.
I believe we may want to keep an eye on the programming until we have a better understanding of just how everything's interacting with all of its systems.
I'll have a conversation with it on a commander to doctor level at some point later. Maybe work out some arrangement where he's allowed to turn himself off, but maybe he'll be around when someone comes in the sickbay looking for him. Have his program running in the background at least, so we can hear the.
It shouldn't be too difficult to install a subroutine to activate his program upon the doors opening.
No, but again, I think we're looking to not make any changes to his programming without his permission. So
We could
as per your
suggest
previous order,
we could suggest it to him if you're concerned about his autonomy. It might also be wise to ask him if he'd be willing to allow us to put in a subroutine that will activate him at any time at which the computer detects a disruption to the life signs of a crew member.
Agreed.
This sounds good to me.
All right. So, as you all get to work on that, we're actually going to cut ahead maybe about an hour, maybe 30 minutes later, as we go to the ready room where Tavarin and the captain are having a very important discussion before the first officer comes in and has their own very important conversation.
Let's see. Abasi, before Tavarin come in, would be sitting back at the desk, just working on one of his pads, hearing the chime. Enter.
And Thavarin would enter into the room ramrod straight. He would appear to be somewhat nervous and concerned about the upcoming meeting, but he would be doing his best to conceal it under a veneer of professional decorum. And he would come to stand in front of the table rather than taking a seat. You wanted to see me, sir?
Yes, please sit down. You don't need to stay standing.
Yes, sir. And Thavarin will take a seat.
Abasi will take his pad, set it down. Even a quick cursory glance to it will see it's essentially some light history reading, trying to catch up from the point they left to where they are now.
I see that you're looking at potentially some of the impact we've had on this new timeline.
That and trying to see what we've missed. Before now, I've only really heard of the Iconians in myth. So I'm trying to find out a little bit more about what and who our new crew member is going to be.
I see. Was it this crew member that you wanted to speak with me about? Are they going to be assigned to either engineering or tactical?
No, that's not a conversation for you right now. What I wanted to talk to you about is I think you're pulling too many duties currently.
And you'll see that Thavarin deflates slightly at that and then catches himself. I don't necessarily disagree, Captain, but I think all of us are doing that.
Yes, it is the unfortunate side effect of having so few of us on this vessel. Though you are trying to fill the shoes of several major roles, I want to limit that to just one. I want to have you officially take over as Chief of Tactical.
Given my failure to identify Dr. Cater's worsening mental state, do you believe that's wise, sir? That I should be in charge of the ship's security, of the safety of its crew?
With that concern that Tavarin said, there's a slight flicker of one of the boss's ears. I think that is something that slipped by all of our notice. You've otherwise proven yourself quite capable in such a role. I think that's where you will excel.
can only say, Captain, if I may, that I view this responsibility with the greatest seriousness and gravitas, and I will accept the position as, frankly, as much as it terrifies me.
Good, I'm glad. If you weren't terrified, as you say, I don't think it would be a good fit for you.
I'm still going to be the best damn tactical officer in this entire fleet, though.
Well, I've seen some of what you can do, and I have no doubts on that.
Thank you, Captain.
Was there anything you wish to talk about?
No, sir. I think you've already covered everything.
Well, you're dismissed.
Thank you, sir. I will assume my new station. And the Varn will simply depart.
And as timing would have it, as you're on the way out, Droxine is on the way in.
Janet?
Commander?
Sir, do you have time to have a quick chat?
I do. Come join me.
Have you looked at the mission profile and the folder on this, the jacket on this new officer coming aboard?
I've done a cursory look at the files we were given, as well as a little more in-depth onto the Iconians themselves.
Oof. I have done exactly no research on the Iconians, but she seems like she's going to be very similar to V in the sense that she doesn't really have any weaknesses. She should be good pretty much anywhere on the ship.
Which is one of the things I wanted your input on. Where do you think we could get the most, I hesitate to say the most value out of our new crew member, but where would her talents be put best to use?
Well, has she expressed a preference at all?
I have yet to even talk to our new crew member.
I mean, with Raylor still catatonic, we do have room at the ops station. And she could sit at helm. I mean, it certainly couldn't hurt me to not split my attention. However, I don't think she'd be as good a helmsman as I am stern. Honestly, I'd rather hold on to that seat myself. She could sit at science. With Cater gone, we lack anyone filling that seat. But I hesitate to remove that possibility from the EMH. If we're going to keep him running a lot of the time, we may want to give him a place to sit.
Well, there are multiple science stations on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps placing her at science would be the best use for now. We can see where her talents lie after that and reassign her as needed.
Certainly. Is this all the fleet admiral could do? We're getting one new person to replace the two that we lost?
I think the fleet admiral also considers the EMH as a new crew assignment as well. So while it's not optimal, I think this is the best we have to work with for right now.
I'll let the crew know that their double rotations are continuing until morale improves, I guess. I'm not gonna lie to you, Captain. I envy your cat-like face's ability to cover up your tiredness.
My face may not show it, but I'm fairly sure the ears and tail do.
And it's right about then. There's a chime at your door.
Basile will look up, enter.
And speak of the devil, and she will appear in floats in Iconian. Now, for
Yep.
those who don't play Star Trek Online or who aren't caught up, I'll give you the nitty gritty details. So, Tholian, or not Tholians, Iconians, at least in the quote unquote current timeline at this juncture, they are actually beings of almost pure energy. Now, they're not like Q level, but they definitely have a tremendous power set. If you will imagine a humanoid with sort of the, I wouldn't call them horns, but almost like extensions from the back of their head to form what is essentially a diamond shape. They have 6 eyes. They have golden ornamentation that sort of frames their figure. And this one in particular is wearing a Starfleet uniform that is white in color. Not red, not blue, not gold, white. And as she floats in, I would say that what I know of Droxine's a fairly tall individual, or at least I've always had that impression.
Mhm.
Let's just say this new officer floats about an inch higher than you do.
Droxine will stand up. Lieutenant?
And I'm not going to turn on voice modulation for this because it would get real old real quickly. But when the officer speaks, if you will imagine this sort of cave like echo quality that if you were to listen to a recording, you wouldn't get it. But in your mind, it's almost as if there's that echoing effect.
Hmm.
And as the officer comes in, stops before you, they sort of dip their head a little bit and say, "Hello, Captain, Lieutenant Commander. I am Lieutenant Junior Grade Hell. It is a pleasure to meet you."
Uh, Lieutenant, it's a pleasure to meet you as well. Please come join us.
And I'll take the other seat so that the closest one to her is open.
And she looks at the chair and sort of moves her head to the side a little bit and goes, "Ah, yes, they did tell me you had a fondness for chairs. If it's all the same, Captain, I believe it is prudent for me to get to work right away." And she pulls out a pad and begins listing off how many hours everybody on the crew has been up. And when she finally lists off the last one, "It's my understanding, sir, that you need someone to fill all of these positions, and you all need some downtime. I believe I am perfect for this endeavor."
How do you intend to fill all of these positions, Lieutenant?
Well, my understanding is that the Prometheus class can quite literally be flown by 2 holograms. Therefore, 1 Iconian should be more than sufficient. Of course, if I am overstepping, Captain, please feel free to tell me otherwise. I simply have, I guess you would call it a, oh, what is the expression? And she's actively floundering. Like her normal, like stoic facade, which she just had, is now starting to buckle a little bit as she tries to search for the right words.
I appreciate your exuberance in wanting to work, Lieutenant. I do not, however, want to force you to work by yourself.
Well, it's my understanding that Lieutenant Mir is more or less undertasked at the moment. I believe the two of us could work in a good pair. Failing that,
Captain,
stick me with the Q. I've always wanted to chat with a Q.
Captain, she's not wrong. If we looped all bridge functions to the tactical and helm consoles, 2 people could probably do a reasonable job of keeping this barge pointed in the right direction. And then if anything of an emergency nature happened, we're only a deck away.
All right, I'll concede the point.
And Hell sort of smiles a little bit, which is a little bit odd if you'll imagine sort of that red energy forming a smile. And she simply says, "Well then, Captain, I believe you are relieved. Have a pleasant rest."
You may assume your duties.
And Hell nods at both of you and goes to take the captain's chair on the bridge. leaving Droxine and Abasi to discuss what the hell just happened.
Captain, does this mean I get to go take a nap? I mean, requesting permission to catch up on my sleep, sir.
Apparently, I'm off duty. I can't deny that.
Awesome.
All right. So, where we're going to go from here is we're going to go maybe about half a day later. So, everyone, and I mean everyone, on the Bastet is actually going to get a day of break, which is interesting because I believe Mr. Alexio has a surprise for everybody in the holodeck. So, I'm going to throw Alexio in there first. Alexio, do you have the program running when people start filtering in, or is it just the standard sort of wireframe of the holodeck?
No, it's running when they walk in. So as soon as they walk in, they find themselves in a 1920s cabaret in Berlin. Like, it's like a big dark room, and there's people milling about and talking and drinking. Some of them wearing little black masks. There's like a jazz band playing. There's a stage with like a big red curtain, and there's men and women doing very spirited dance on stage. And they see Alexio too, but Alexio is in a human form, but it's like clearly recognizable as him. Like, it's the same face, same build, but he's like transformed into sort of this essentially the owner of this establishment. And he's just like, welcome to the Edelweiss Cafe. This is my little establishment here. Please get a drink. There's I am, men and women who work for me who'd be happy to give you company. Oh, come, new members of the crew as well. And I'm very, very excited for to hear what people think of my program. Basically, that I've sort of built this place.
So real quick, I do have one point of order. Would the EMH have come to this meeting?
So I was actually just about to ask if the EMH can appear in the corner in a 1920s like suit and tie with a hat on, and he's got like a drink in his hand. He's gonna point, and then he's gonna walk over to the captain. Say, Captain, it's good to see you. I figured as the acting chief medical officer, it's good for the crew to get to know me in a more casual sense, so that if I ever have to treat some serious injuries, they'll feel close to me. So I'm going to, I believe it's called mingle, sir.
Of course, it's good to see you here, Doctor.
Lieutenant Alexio, did you override the blocks I put in place to keep the EMH from wandering the ship?
No, I haven't.
I did that. It's against the law. You can't tell me not where to go. I have rights.
I think you'll find on a Starfleet vessel that your commanding officers actually can limit where you can go on the ship.
And before it gets any further, V actually steps up to the two of you and says, all right, I'm the one that did it. Can you yell at me and get on with it, please?
Oh, I mean, it's friendly banter. I'm sorry, officer. I apologize.
No, and V actually shakes her head. Let's just say you've read the logs. I think we're all a little still on edge after the whole Cater incident.
I'll tell you what, I'll buy you a drink and we can talk about it.
I like the cut of your jib, sir.
By the way, Mr. EMH, is there anything else you want us to call you other than emergency medical hologram? Seems a little impersonal.
The EMH is actually going to stop for a moment, and he's going to think. Call me Eric.
Eric, I'm a fan. Everybody. Eric drinks free all night, and everybody in the bar just cheers. It was going to be free anyway, but they love it when I do that.
I'll have another drink appear in my hand automatically, and then I'll walk to the bar with the commander, and I'll set it down, and we can talk.
All right. So as you two peel away, I'm actually very curious what Tavarin and Abasi think of all this.
Why Eric?
Well, it's better than Joe.
I'll give you that, yeah. What was it, like 25 years that Voyager EMH was working on a name and ended up with Joe? I am somewhat concerned, however, Captain, that he has taken it upon himself to simply transport into the holodeck, despite Ensign or Lieutenant V's defense of him. That is a disquieting example of autonomy, perhaps?
Breath, you sound quite interested in this.
What do you mean, sir?
Well, V said she's responsible for it, but you don't quite seem to fully believe that?
It seemed a convenient opportunity for her to interpose herself in an argument, and that does seem somewhat apropos for a counselor, perhaps? Circumvent an argument between two officers?
Perhaps. Though I can see the problem if it becomes a habit. But for now, let's not make too big of a fuss.
With all due
I'm
respect,
gonna-
sir. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say I'm gonna wander over and just be like, "Oh, you two look very serious. You're not talking about work, are you?"
When it's there, I always have to talk it.
Oh, but come now. This is supposed to be fun. You know, I've never asked you, Commander Abasi, what do you do for recreation? What do you do? It can't all be just in fixing things and helping people.
I suppose a good amount of reading.
Well, that must mean you have an imagination. Do you like history? What do you think of what do you think? Did I do an okay job?
Abasi's gonna stop, wait a moment, look towards Tavarin, assuming he sees that Tavarin still wants to continue that conversation.
You would see that Tavarin is still somewhat concerned as he's glancing towards the hologram, but he's also relaxed his posture when Alexio reminded him that they are technically off duty.
Abasi's just gonna give a slight nod of his head to that before looking back around the holodeck. Well, I can't really speak for how historically accurate it is, but it does remind me of something I saw back in my academy days.
Oh, really? Tell me more.
I think, if I remember correctly, it was a bistro near the academy.
Alexio, could I ask you about this place? Why this venue? Does it have something to do with your own experience, your interest in history? I didn't know that you were fascinated by Terran or ancient Terran cultures.
Well, my initial confrontation with Earth culture led me to believe that humans were rather boring, frankly, sticks in the mud, very, all about the rules and their duty. But just like you, it turns out they have surprises. Here, is a time in which people truly embraced what was possible, different ways of living their lives, different ways of loving each other and relating to each other. And then it was all snatched away from them. And I think that weighs very heavily still on the people of Earth, as I can imagine that it would. But anyway, I suppose there's just something about this time that I find beautiful in its transience.
Well, the ephemerality of any phase of a culture's existence can be interesting, I suppose. I've never really thought about it that way. Although, I guess, given our position, we really should be thinking about those kinds of things. How, in even a moment, everything can be changed. The Federation lost. But you didn't call us here to talk about such dour things. What do you have to drink?
No, not at all. Come this way. Come this way. I know what you like, Tavar, and I have a bottle of blood wine. I've been keeping quite secret from Tamarochka. She'd kill me if she knew I had it, but I was saving it especially for you, and a gesture for you to follow me back behind the bar where I have a very, very rare vintage of blood wine that I've been saving for a special occasion.
And Tavarin would then take the bottle and examine the vintage and the label printed thereon. I'm actually touched, Alexio, but you do realize that if Tamarochka would kill you for hiding this from her, you can only imagine what she'd do to me.
And I think at this point, V just sort of walks by with a bubbling pink drink and sort of leans in and says, I think that means you're going to have to drink it all there, buddy. Have fun with that. And she just keeps on walking.
She has a fair point.
Well, I can at least share some with you.
Speaking of, where is Demarochka? She was invited too.
I haven't really spoken to her recently. I'd imagine she's in her hidey holes in engineering, one of them.
I kind of greased my brow in somewhat irritation, and I tapped the comms badge. Alexio de Demarochka.
And you actually hear like a muffled thump come over the comms and says, yes, Mr. Alexio, what can I be doing for you?
You're not at my party. What did I do? Something to offend you?
Oh, it's a party. I was under impression it was meant for actual senior staff on bridge, not for hardworking engineers in engineering.
Oh, no, it's for everybody. Please come. With the caveat, I have to tell you, the Varan has been hiding a very nice bottle of blood wine from you, and so please don't.
Mid conversation, as you're spinning that, there's a beam of blue light next to you, and literally beaming into the holodeck is Tamarochka.
As I see that, I would like to do something. I would like to replicate a bow, or to call for the holodeck to create a bow, and stick it onto the bottle awkwardly. And as she transports in, I'm just sort of holding it out to her.
And
surprise!
She looks very critically between Alexio and Tavarin. To Alexio Tavarin sighs and says, Alexio, when party is done, you and I are going to have frank discussion about where you are hiding liquor. It is very important I know where it is at all times.
Yes, absolutely. As chief engineer, you have to know about, a distillery or a still. Those are dangerous. I mean, an accident could cause an explosion on the ship.
Oh, no, I just wish to know where they are because I need liquor every once in a while. It's very crucial to my functioning.
I was trying to give you a legitimate justification for your
We're off
alcoholism,
duty,
but you
doesn't
didn't.
matter. And she takes the bottle, pops it open, takes a swig, and kind of looks at the vintage and goes, "Oh, 2309, very good year. Very good year indeed."
Oh, yes, it was a gift when I finished my academy rotation on a Klingon ship.
Well, let's finish this bottle off, I believe his expression. And as Tavar and Alexio and Tamarochka sort of side off to a table, I do want to go to Eric and Droxine real quick before we go to Abasi, because there's something special I got for Abasi, but I do want to let Eric and Droxine actually say stuff instead of just typing it.
I'm going to start with what I just said. So interesting you should ask. My programming seems to be a fragmentation of 36,289 different medical professionals, combining knowledge along with 25,689.5 different science officers, a Klingon, 3 Vulcans, and a Ferengi. If I may request, sir, I would like one of the engineers to run a full system diagnostic on my programming before I'm set to full active duty, in the interest of the crew, with reference to the former medical doctor, sir.
That seems like a prudent step, Mr. Eric. But we're off duty, so
It's Doctor.
maybe we do like a personal
Doctor Eric.
Yeah, of course, Doctor. My apologies. So opera, huh? Wouldn't you agree that musical theater is by far a superior musical genre?
I always thought of opera as a type of musical theater. It just focuses on the entertaining part of musical theater for the entire show. Gets rid of all the dialogue.
So, then in which case you would just consider Les Mis an opera.
Correct.
And the most recent London mounting of the Andorian pirate. What did you think of that?
I would hardly call that theater.
But they sang the whole time, which is apparently the only qualification that creates good theater. Isn't that what you just said?
Correct, but it has to be good music, not whatever that is.
I'm sorry, have you ever listened to the entirety of the Magic Flute?
I have now, yes.
It's a train wreck, and there weren't even trains yet.
I see your point.
All right. Maybe later we can get together and listen to this old track I just found. It's Hamel something. I hear it's very good.
I would like that, Commander. Thank you.
And as we sort of move the camera back over to look at Abasi, I'm curious, Abasi, what are you doing about all of what's just happened?
Abasi, by this point, moved off to one of the tables, has a glass of something, and is just sitting there taking it all in.
And I think as you're taking it all in, I think V actually sort of slides up to the stage and begins having a conversation with the band that's playing. And as you note this, you also note that the holodeck door to your right opens up, and in floats your new officer. And as she looks around, she immediately settles on you, Commander, and floats over to join you at the table. And she says, Captain, I understood that apparently I was requested at this function.
Lieutenant Hell. Yes, Lieutenant Alexio was throwing this for everybody on board.
Well, in the interest of keeping the ship running, I do have Lieutenant Mir currently manning the bridge alongside the emergency command hologram, so I have approximately 43 minutes I can spend in this simulation. Barring, of course, any red alerts, sir.
Do we have an emergency command hologram?
Oh, yes. I made it a point of order to activate all of your emergency holograms. They are all operating in peak efficiency.
Abasi just kind of think about that for a minute, but he's just going to drop it and come back to that later. Well, for the time you have, please come enjoy yourself.
and she looks around and says, I do not really understand this imbuing of liquor. It is something that the Iconians of old did, but we have no need of it now, and I do not see the point of it, sir.
Well, obviously, you don't need to come and enjoy yourself. Think of this as a chance for some downtime to relax and mingle with the rest of your crew.
In that case, sir, you will excuse me.
He'll lightly nod his head.
And Hell floats up, and she actually joins V on stage as they're talking with the band. And V and Hell sort of look at one another, and for the moment, for just the briefest of moment of Aussie, you're like, oh, hell, this is not going to be good. But then they just sort of nod their heads at each other, and then they nod at the band. And the band begins playing a very catchy jazz tune. And Hell actually takes up the bass guitar and starts going to town. V starts singing, which I'm not going to actually sing because I don't want to subject you to that. But V begins singing along. It's almost like that episode of DS9 where Kira, quote unquote, is singing. Same sort of function here. And as everybody's jamming to the music, I tell you what, we've been going for an hour. Why don't we take a 5 to 10 minute break and we'll come back and continue where we left off. So yeah, back about 5-10 minutes. Stick around. Welcome back, everybody. If you're just tuning in, we're having a Lower Decks style of episode tonight on Bastet. We've seen the new Iconian officer, Hell. We've seen Tavarin get promoted to Chief Tactical. We've seen Alexio's Cabaret Club on the holodeck. And we're actually going to go forward about maybe a day and a half so that the hangover from a certain bottle of blood wine doesn't totally kill Tavarin. But we zoom in on one of the laboratories on the Bastet where the hologram, the EMH quote-unquote Dr. Eric, is being reviewed by Lieutenant Tavarin. And what I would say is that you two are probably in the very initial stages of this procedure to make sure that the EMH is operating correctly.
Lieutenant Tavarin, I wanted to first and foremost say thank you for meeting me here and performing this task. Based on my reading of the ship's logs over the last 100 days, as well as some of the personal logs from the former doctor, you are apparently the most competent member of the crew. So I requested you personally.
Did the previous doctor actually indicate that in his logs directly, or is that some kind of inference on your part? Because which section of your program has been somehow adversely affected and is causing you to, generate these delusions would be dependent. I mean, it would be an indication of where I need to look for the problem.
Phenomenal question. Actually, several times he mentioned Tavarin is the most competent. And then in Cater's voice, he'll read a passage, or play passage saying, Tavarin is the most competent member, although he's an asshole.
Well, half of that sounds like something that he would say, but that other half, I don't know, it must be some kind of temporal distortion field that has disrupted the logs, because that doesn't make any sense. But the second concern that I have before we start running this diagnostic, do you have authorization to actually review people's personal logs? Because that seems like a violation of privacy standards. And as Chief Tactical Officer, and he's going to actually take out a pad and start reviewing various different Starfleet regulations pertaining to the limitations on access to private logs. Yes, Regulation 16, subsection 7, paragraph 5. No officer is allowed, save under concerns regarding medical health, to review the logs of a fellow officer.
If you read the section where it says medical health, the former chief medical officer murdered someone, so I felt it was logical, as the Vulcans would say, to review his personal manifesto, as it were.
Well, I do appreciate your concern for the security of the ship, but former Dr. Cater is no longer on board this vessel. There's no real concern, unless you have one.
My real concern is that if it could happen to someone with his level of medical training, it is possible could happen to all of you, which is why I did recommend to the captain a full psychological analysis on everyone. But that's not why we're here. We're here to make sure that I'm operating at optimal efficiency. So,
True enough. You really shouldn't be worried about us, though. I mean, Dr. Cater was always quite unstable, so it was really just a confluence of the stress and his weak personality and psyche.
correct. You do seem to be somewhat defensive about this topic, though. I'm going to recommend, in my capacity as Chief Medical Officer, that you double your meetings with Counselor V.
Is she really qualified for that, by the way?
Based on all of the information I have available, yes. But I would be happy to take over if you'd prefer.
You know, I find it a little bit easier to talk with you. Actually, it's very refreshing, relatively speaking, from the last doctor. So, yes, you seem like a. Should I call you a man? I mean, I don't want to be offensive.
No, that's fine. I did choose a masculine nomenclature for Eric, but I would like to speak with you. I find the conversation stimulating.
There's a kind of forthrightness and seriousness that you have towards your duties that I do respect. In that light, I should probably be a little bit more serious about mine. Let's start that scan of your program. Okay. And Thavarn will take out the various different scanning technology that's necessary and cross-reference it with the subroutines that he can review on the computer.
All right. Now, again, this is lower decks. I'm not going to have you actually roll anything, but I don't know, Wolf, is anything actually wrong with the EMH?
So nothing's wrong, but again, like he had said in the previous scene, you're picking up multiple different like EMH programs, and the time signatures of these programs span from the first Mark I EMH all the way to some 29th century technology, and it's a smattering of all of those different programs. But what's interesting is that there is a baseline personality, but instead of having like defined, like this is what I love, this is what I like, the only thing that's defined is that he really likes opera, but there's like emotion, there's like empathy, there's like this baseline empathy, this like it's like a mental wave you'd see, like a brain wave, but it's not fully developed, is what you pick up.
Well, I'm not an expert in any kind of hollow programming or design, and all the people who compiled the various different EMHs over the years have been brilliant in their field. So I'm really just stumbling about in the dark, more or less, even if I am the most capable individual to carry out this investigation. You seem all right, but I've never seen a holomatrix like this. It's almost like you're a gestalt of all the various different EMH programs that have ever been constructed, and some that haven't. I'm getting subroutines that I really can't tease out. They seem to be, well, at least somewhat similar to programs we encountered on the Relativity, a 29th century time ship.
Let me ask you this. In your capacity as Chief Security Officer and with your expertise, might I say brilliant expertise as an engineer, is this something you feel will impact or interfere with my ability to act as Chief Medical Officer aboard this vessel?
Frankly, I can't give you an answer to that. I mean, the closest thing that I could create it as an analogy for this would be something like, not quite multiple personality disorder, but you have multiple competing programs interweaved in a complex webwork that I've never really seen before. It's almost like you're hanging on a razor's edge. At any moment, some unexpected interaction between these programming codes could occur, or not.
Then in that case, I think it would be prudent to have some sort of override or command protocol to deactivate me in case I became a danger or threat to the crew. Do you think it would be best to give that to you or perhaps the captain?
I think it would be logical to have it in the hands of both myself and the captain, although we wouldn't want that to be widely propagated, as some enemy agent could board the vessel and then use it against us. Best to keep it confined and not in any of the computer databases.
Is this something that you could do now and set up that protocol before I resume my duties?
I believe so. I should also set up a monitoring program to ascertain how the various different coding structures within your program are interacting. I'd like to monitor them on a regular basis to see if there's anything that we need to do, not just for our protection, but also for you, Doctor. Eric, if I may.
Dr. Eric.
Do you want a last name then? Dr.
No.
Eric sounds...
Dr. Eric.
Okay, Dr. Eric. I would like to monitor your condition and see how this evolves over time. Your matrices are still compiling, in a way.
So, in a sense, you will be my doctor. Is that correct?
That's an interesting way of thinking about it, but yes, regular checkups for both of us would be wise.
I couldn't think of myself being in any better hands. Let's proceed.
All right, very good, Doctor.
All right. And as you get to work, we actually sort of zoom in on the Jeffries tube axis of the laboratory, and we start to zoom through the Jeffries tubes until we catch up with a Lieutenant Droxine, currently on his hands and knees, running a tricorder over every inch of the Jeffries tubes. And Droxine, you've been at this for, well, I'll let you decide how long, but you eventually come to a junction and you almost run smack dab into Tamarochka. And she says, "Oh, Lieutenant Commander Droxine, I was not expecting to see you here."
Yes, Lieutenant. I hope I'm not intruding.
No, I'm just on my daily calisthenics run. Why are you running through corridors with tricorder?
Well, keep this under your hat. But when I was speaking with Faressa before we transferred her over to Deep Space October, she intimated that there may be further devices that she had hidden aboard. However, I ran a scan and couldn't detect anything, and the captain kind of told me to drop it. So, in my spare time, I've been scanning Jeffries tubes with a tricorder.
Sounds like you're just a little bit paranoid. I mean, let's look at this from a logical standpoint. We had not only yourself, myself, the best engineers from Babylon Fleet, the Fleet Admiral herself perform scans and found nothing. Now, of course, given what we know of Varissa, apparently what little we knew of her, it's very possible that she anticipated all this and hid it very, very well. But I would simply posit, what is more likely? That she said it to unnerve you and get into your head, or that there's actually a number of devices we don't know about?
My concern is that I have failed to take some threats to the ship seriously, and I don't want that happening on my watch again.
Well, I do believe that is point of having Tavarin as Chief Tactical now. We can all blame him when something goes wrong.
Except that technically, as first officer, I'm still responsible for all of Mr. Tavarin's actions.
Oh, no. Definitely lump problems on him. Very, very easy thing to do.
Lieutenant, I will take that under advisement.
Well, did you bring a second tricorder?
As it happens, I have an engineering tricorder that
And she just snatches it out of your hand and starts scanning. Well, I can confirm within 2-deck radius there are... What the hell? And she looks at the tricorder. That son of a bitch. Alexio told me about his still on deck board, but he did not tell me about the one on deck 6. I will be having words with this gentleman.
Duly noted. I'll take Jeffrey's tube F if you take the next one over.
She's already gone. She's already off to find either Alexio or deck 6, and you're just alone in the Jeffrey's tube again.
Thanks for your help.
We now are going to go to... where is it? We're going to go to sickbay, where Abasi, you are actually here to speak to V. So just don't mind the tokens as I clean them up. There we go.
So, Abasi will be in front of the door waiting to be let in.
And right on time, down to the millisecond, the door opens and Lieutenant V says, Captain, please have a seat. Chair, couch, whichever you prefer.
Walk in and sit over by the couch.
So, Captain, Commander, I know we haven't really done the whole patient confidentiality talk, but it is something I have to reiterate that anything you tell me, no matter what it is, does not leave this room.
Of course.
And on that note, sir, how are you feeling? And don't just give me the, oh, I'm good, thanks answer, because let me tell you, I've heard that one 11 times this week, and it's getting kind of stale.
That Abasi's ear flickers slightly. Still trying to process everything that's gone on.
And how's that going?
If I could tear out my own fur, I think I would be.
Is this something where you're having trouble sleeping, perhaps? Caught up late at night with anxiety?
I suppose that's what it is.
Well, there's several tools we can use to tackle this problem, and really, it's on you which one we use. I can, in my profession, actually give you anti-anxiety medication, but I will also tell you that they're not a miracle worker. You have to do a little bit of work on your end. They're not just going to fix your problem and make it magically go away.
I don't think medication might be the best course if I'm in command of the vessel.
I mean, I'll be frank, sir. Lots of captains and commanders and first officers and hell, even admirals. They have conditions like this. They have anxiety they need to deal with. They have depression, stress. I mean, they're people like anyone else. They are just as much in need of whatever assistance they can get. It's nothing bad, nothing to be ashamed of.
Abasi's head will kind of tilt to the side as he considers that. What are your other options?
Well, the other option is I actually start doing group therapy. Of course, I do enjoy our one-on-one conversations, but let's just say that group therapy is something that I think would work well for the crew.
I'm not too sure about that one.
Oh?
I don't, at least for my being a part of that, I'm not sure if it's a good idea for the rest of the crew to see their captain as being so unsure and distraught.
And at this, she actually kind of leans forward on her desk, 2 elbows down, hand into other hand, and says, "Now, Captain, I will of course be frank with you, as I always am. The whole I'm the perfect captain, I have no stress, I have nothing going on wrong, it's not going to work for much longer. You're going to have to start showing weakness at some point, or it's going to destroy you." And hell, if it means anything coming from a former Q, I think that your flaws actually give you more character and respect than someone without them.
I'd still prefer not to share that with the crew.
Alright, group therapy's out. Third option is, I give you a few holodeck programs that you tackle at your leisure. With, of course, a medical grant to be in the holodeck a couple hours a day.
I suppose I'd be willing to try that.
Good, I hope you like water, because all I've got is Ryza.
That doesn't sound too bad.
Good, good, good. And as she pulls up a pad and starts typing out, we actually see sort of trick of the camera where we still see Abasi and V, but out of that curved window, we actually do see Alexio entering into sickbay. And I don't know, Alexio, would it be a new book, an old book?
It's still the same one.
Same one. And I think it's fair for me to say Alexio goes over to Ruleur's bedside and begins reading, yeah?
Yep.
All right. So as V notices this, she kind of points it out to the captain and says, now here's a perfect example. That man has literally had his girlfriend go hell and back. He himself has lost people. And all I can really say is that of all the people on the crew, he's probably the one who's lost the most. I mean, sure, the lieutenant commander lost his girl and his preferred ship. I mean, hell, Cater was a basket case in retrospect, but look at how Alexei was tackling things. He's not bottling it up. He's not making a fuss. He's dealing with it in a very open fashion.
I say Bastet's going to turn his head slightly to take a look out the windows. I see your point. I don't want it to get to a point where the crew questions my ability to be in command.
I mean, we've been, well, not me specifically, but they've been with you for 100 days already through multiple timelines. If they were going to mutiny, they would have probably done it already.
That makes me feel somewhat better, and yet at the same time it doesn't.
Good. That means therapy's working. I mean, let's be frank. If I told you everything you wanted to hear, we'd get nothing done.
True. Well, I suppose I'll go check out these holodeck programs.
See that you do. And I would recommend Jamal Harun. It's a very enlightening experience.
No.
I'm telling you to get laid. Go do it.
Bastet's just going to stand and walk out, his tail the size of a Christmas tree.
And as the commander is on the way out, the camera pans over to Alexio and Rulor. And Alexio, I don't know. This is the final scene of the night. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your head. What's going on with Rulor? What's going on?
Yeah, you come in, and I'm actually just sitting there recapping my day to her, just like, oh yes, and I had a run-in with the new Iconian crewmate. Oh, she is a tough pill to swallow, I am telling you. I already did the whole quirky best friend to a straight man thing with Savara, and I don't think I can do it again. But if you were here, you would love making fun of her. And then I just kind of reach over and take her hand. I miss you so much, Villa. Please come back to us soon. And then I let go and I just pick up the book, open it up again. So when last we left off, the brave officers of the Cardassian Empire were about to strike a blow against the savage Klingons. And I just start reading.
And I think indeed we sort of zoom out of sickbay, out of the Bastet. We see it sort of floating by in space. And that's where I end our little short episode of Lower Decks on the Bastet.
Nikhil, great job, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
thanks.
Great
That
stuff.
was beautifully framed from the beginning to the end. That was a really good job, man.
yeah,
Thanks.
that was primo. So yeah, I think next week we're gonna pretty much throw you guys back into the whole time shenanigans thing. I'll take suggestions. I mean, would you guys prefer past, future?
I
We
don't
just done
think
list on the future. I'm sorry.
I don't think we've actually gone to the future. We've only gone backwards in time so far.
So what I'm hearing is it's time to introduce a universe class and send you to the 26th century. Got it.
Apparently, yes.
All right, cool. All right, well, this is where I'll end the recording for YouTube, but Twitch, stick around because we're going to rate somebody. But YouTube, see you later.